We started off by working with a group of young research volunteers. They came from all sorts of backgrounds. They were university graduates, industry, and they helped us to bring together the story, really. So we started off by mapping out their ideas and telling them a bit more about the First World War, and obviously they brought quite a lot of information themselves.
The research process was quite fun, actually. We spent a lot of time in London Transport Museum archives, things like going into the parliamentary areas like Hansard and sort of seeing how this sort of bus narrative had permeated.
They found out lots of local stories. They went to visit the Tottenham bus garage, and they started to piece together the story that we have here today. We took this story up to Northumberland Park Community School and worked with a lovely group of Year 9 boys who hadn't done a project like this at all. They were a little bit shy at the beginning, I'd say, before they really got into it.
So the project about the Butter Bus has really got the boys involved. Obviously it's something they all identify with, London Bus, and boys their age as well involved in the story. So it's really brought out quite a good side of some of them who were struggling with history before or not enjoying it as much. It's taken it out of the classroom and put it into a new context. And actually the feedback from the parents has been amazing. It's really turned around reports. I'm pleased.
I've enjoyed it. It was funny at points because when we was doing the scenes, it was like we didn't think that we can do what we did. So
we decided to take them down to the museum's Acton depot, where they got to have a go on the bus and meet the curators down there and find out a bit more about the story of the bus.
I thought it was going to be an ordinary museum where there was just like toys and that, but there was an actual big battle bus. So it was fun to see the actual real bus, what was at war.
From there we took them down to Andy Robertshaw's trench, which is down in Surrey. So it was a massive trip for the boys. There was a point where once Andy got them in their uniforms and they were lining up and they were just getting into character, and Andy did a brilliant job of just getting them into this kind of First World War character, and you could just see their personalities shining through, and Maluki doing the film with them. It was a brilliant day for them, and we got some really good feedback.
It was a very good experience because even though it was fake, it felt like being at the trench.
It was very hot and sticky, but like we knew it wasn't a real trench, but it felt like we was actually at war. It would feel very uncomfortable because we just went for one day and they had to wear it for 4 years, was it?
It was a one-off experience in terms of what we've been able to do. I could never have organised for 8 boys to go and do these trips and justify the expense and my time away from my other classes. So it's been incredible to get to go and see the trenches, to get to go and see the costumes. It really brought it all to life, to understand, you know, they're real things that really happen, not just in books and on print. They're real people whose lives were impacted.
So what was really important for us was, once we'd found these stories, these local stories from Tottenham, is to give the boys an experience of what it might have been like to go out to the Somme and be fighting out there, which was an incredible experience for them. They went with the Battlefields tour team, who gave them a tour of the Somme, and they got to see some of the memorial sites. One of them was where Maggie Bonningfield's grandfather, William, he has a gravestone there, and the boys got to see where William is buried. It was a really moving experience for the group. It was the kind of final piece in the project, really, for them actually to go to the Somme. The museum does an amazing recruitment process for their apprentices, and they select apprentices that are right for the project. But when I met Lamar, I knew that they'd chosen exactly the right person for this year's project. It took him a little while to build up his skills before delivering his very own project, which was the outreach volunteers and the poetry.
Outside of work-wise, I really do enjoy like music, spoken word and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to bring that aspect together and see what I can get out of it. So spoken word came into my mind. I've been really interested in spoken word and just like the concept of language and stuff like that. And I felt it could work really well when looking at wartime poets as well. So it literally just brought together, and we managed to find a really great, amazing group. We're working with a really great film artist and poetic artist as well. So it's really, really going well.
If you want to find out what happened at a particular moment in time, then you go to the history books. If you want to find out how people feel, then you go to the poetry of the time. What we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get a group of young people to appreciate events that happened 100 years ago, which might be slightly outside of their realm of experience or their realm of understanding. But when you place it into a human context, the idea that you had young men going to war, you had women being employed on these buses for the first time ever. You draw deep from your own experiences or your own understanding. That's what poetry is, a very personal thing. So what I tried to do with the group is I tried to get them to just draw on their own feelings and then relate it to the project.
It's been an incredibly educational project. I think they've benefited from it hugely. Our curriculum time is quite tight, so what we can fit in is not necessarily all of the extra interesting and amazing details that the project allowed them to get into. To be able to look at one person's life from the local area and chart it all the way through from the start of the war to what happens as a result, we just wouldn't have had time to do that, or the resources and the connections. So that's been really great for them to get a personal experience from somebody who lived through it and find out, you know, what happened to them. Sometimes I think it's a bit removed from them when they're learning about a war and you're talking about thousands or millions of people. It's hard to find the single story that they can kind of relate to and connect to. London bus and a local boy, it's what they deal with every day. So it was perfect for getting a foothold onto the history of it. It was great.
The bit that interested me was that I found out that it was in my community. Tottenham has a place in my heart. If it's in your community, you have a better understanding, because it felt like if it was one of us about 100 years ago.
I think the benefits of working with the museum are we've had access to things that we would never have had access to. We had access to the depot, we had access to specialists, to Becky as an artist. We've had experience with working with making the film, which the boys have really enjoyed.
I've really enjoyed working with London Transport Museum. It's been an eye-opener for me. I never knew about the battle bus project in any way, shape or form. And just visiting the museum, it was the first time I've walked past that museum billions of times in my life. I'd never been inside, so just walking around and seeing all the old different incarnations of the London bus. Obviously my heart is with the Route Master, that's my bus, right? The one I can jump on the back of. So just seeing that and realizing it represents something more than just a collection of machines, like a collection of trains and automobiles. It represents so much more than that, because the transport of a city is the lifeblood of a city. That's what keeps everything going, keeps everything moving, and that's what allows the city to function.
I think it's really, really important, and I think it's what museums are there for. In terms of what the Transport Museum's done by involving children from secondary schools, by sort of presenting them with this narrative which they haven't really come across before, because very few people have, apart from sort of transport experts, and then brought that home and said, this is what was happening where you live 100 years ago to boys like you. Really sort of personalised it.
It's wonderful. To actually get to teach and learn about something that's not going to be on their exam is really, really wonderful. It gives them a real live view of learning for learning's sake rather than to keep getting grades.